Hello and welcome to the Mastermind, Body, and Spirit Show. I'm your host, Matt Belair. Using her core values, today's guest works with board members, top-level managers, angel investors, and professionals seeking to excel in their careers and improve performance to drive even greater success. Her client portfolio ranges from financial consulting, retail, fashion, aviation, and more. She is also a former host of a TV show and author of 2 best-selling books. Her mission is to get leaders to experience their excellence by exploring values, understanding aspirations, removing barriers, and visualizing the path to their personal and professional success. Welcome to the show, Mihaela Berciu.
Hi, Matt. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to do this show. You know, you have an excellent background in all the things that I'm very interested in, but I'll allow you to introduce yourself to the audience. Tell us a little bit about, your work, your vast history, and how you got into the consulting and everything you're doing today.
I'm very excited to be here as well. I've listened to a few of your previous episodes, so I'm actually looking forward to this conversation. My background. Well, I was born and grew up in Romania, and that gave me quite a vast experience, life experience, because Romania was communist at the time, and it was one of the strictest communist countries in Eastern Europe. So that brought with itself a lot of restrictions in the way we were, brought up, in the way we connected to the world, in the way we understood basic principles like trust, like authenticity, and safety, really. And through that, I became very curious about how life works. And especially when I was about 13, it was my first time I left Romania, and we went to Eastern Germany. And then Eastern Germany wasn't too different from what I was used to. But then we also went to Western Germany. And Western Germany was a completely new world for me. So that was my first glimpse of, life being very different from what I've known. And then the cherry on top of my, experiences so far was a trip to London when I was 16. And that completely blew my mind off. And when I went back, I went back thinking, okay, there's definitely more to life than what we're experiencing. And I think that was one of the moments when that stuck with me, discovering that there is more to life than what we know. And I think from there on, I kind of been guided by this curiosity, by this desire to learn more, to know more, to discover more. So today, I still do that. And today, I think I'm very fortunate to be able to help others discover more about themselves and discover how they can engage with life in a very different way, and in a way that they actually love living, they love what they do. And because I work with top level executives and business owners, love being leaders. Is most people think, oh, I would love to be the leader, but then they get in that position and then they realize that maybe it's not as fun as they thought it would be, and definitely not as easy as they thought it would be. A bit like people who want to become entrepreneurs, thinking, oh, I'm going to do whatever I want whenever I want, and it's I rule my life. And then they become entrepreneurs and they realize that they actually work a lot longer, the responsibility is a lot higher, and sometimes, or most times, even the stress is a lot higher, and that they end up sacrificing all of their free time, for the business. So a bit like that, you know, I help leaders really take command the authority they deserve and take charge of you know, their positions.
Wow. Well, I appreciate you sharing that background, and I can't imagine what it would be like to grow up in that environment. And I feel like in the Western world, a lot of people will talk about childhood trauma and stuff like that. And for you to experience that kind of life and then see this whole new world would be both challenging and also inspiring, because you'd recognize a huge opportunity where I also think some of the people who live where, you know, in Canada, the US, and some other spots don't recognize the massive opportunity they have, you know, and so they don't see it, right? So yeah, I'm assuming you'd have this deep appreciation for it just growing up without it. And my first question would be, when you know, work with leaders, a lot of what you talk about is core values, and I feel like that's something that we don't touch on a lot in the show. Like, we do speak about values, and I'm just curious, how do you help an individual who is guiding their life, whether they're in a professional setting right now and they work for a company, or they're in the entrepreneur space or thinking about it? Because I feel like if you can line up your core values and then work in that direction, no matter what you do is going to be fulfilling to you. So it won't really matter what your level of success is. Like, it'd be great to be massively successful and all over the world. And if you had a little bit of success, but it was really aligned with who you were, you'd feel good about it.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. I think core values are the hidden, you know, the hidden treasure that we have. And until we dig deep and discover them and uncover them and bring them to the surface to guide us, they still do. But once we're aware of them, they become our superpower. And the way I work with core values is three core values and three different attributes for each of those three core values, because the attributes define what that core value means to you. Because we could share the same core value, say honesty, but one of the attributes for you would be tell the truth, whereas for me one attribute could be do not lie. And we would think we act the same way, and we think that for us, you know, we would connect over sharing the same core value, honesty. But in reality, for you, telling the truth means telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Whereas for me, not lying, it means that whatever I tell you is the truth, but it doesn't mean I'm telling you everything. And just because I'm not telling you everything, it doesn't mean I'm lying or I'm trying to deceive you. It means maybe that my mind is more, it's an analytical kind of mind that extracts what I think is important from a conversation or from something. So, and what I'm telling you is what I believe is worth sharing. And the rest, because for me the rest is unimportant, I don't share it. But for you, if you find out that I haven't shared everything and that there are things that I didn't tell you about, based on how you understand and how you act on your core value, honesty, you would say I'm lying. And where we would start a conversation or a relationship, an interaction based on trust and openness, because we share the same core value, we can easily end up in a big conflict, because you would say I'm lying. I would get very offended because I'm living my core value and I'm being true to my core value. And unless we know what that core value means to us, we wouldn't be able to bring back the conversation and bring back the relationship and align it based on and grow the trust between the two of us. And so this model, this matrix of three core values with three attributes for each core value becomes a blueprint for our behavior, for our interaction, and most importantly, for our decision making. And the other reason it's very important is that once we know that the decision we made is fully aligned with our core values, even if the decision is walk away, from something that might mean wow or appear as an amazing opportunity, but if your gut feeling tells you no, something is just not right there, and you take out your blueprint of core values and you see where the misalignment is, and you decide, you know what, it's too much this misalignment for me to even bother to negotiate this situation. Walking away, you walk away with an open heart and with the confidence that that is the right thing for you. And the beauty of this is it takes away overthinking, because there is no more what if after a decision has been made, when you know is fully aligned with your core values.
Well, I love that. And I love the addition of the attributes, just getting very, very clear on, how you're going to express those core values. So I think that's an excellent addition. And you also studied, I don't know if there's a difference between psychology and psychology of mind and theory at Oxford, which I think Oxford and London is a big deal. So good for you. Sounds like a cool building as well, because I've been kind of diving into Tartary and these old structures, and London is absolutely full of these incredible pieces of architecture. You talk a little bit about false beliefs, and I go into limiting beliefs, or people who struggle with anxiety. Is there a way for people to identify those, like these unconscious patterns or limiting beliefs that they have, and then become aware of them and then replace them with something positive? If they can go a day and from feeling, they go on throughout the day with like a bit of anxiety, a bit of dread, a bit of depression, a bit of confusion. And I'm curious if your work touches on that.
Of course, yes, it does. And it's always easier to work with someone to help you identify your limiting beliefs. But and this is something that I'm actually covering in my next book. You can do it on your own if you start paying a lot of attention the dialogue that goes on in your head, because there's always a dialogue going on. And sadly, most times this dialogue is there to prevent you from doing something that your subconscious is not already accustomed to. So if you find yourself or hearing yourself saying in your head, oh, if you say, oh, I would love to go sailing, I don't know, just say, and your mind says, I don't know about that, it's the waters, it's not that safe, or it's too expensive, or, that there is a limiting belief. And the limiting belief is you can't do it. Or you're thinking, oh, I'm working for this corporation, but I would like to be an entrepreneur. And then write down all the thoughts that come to your mind without filtering. Just write and write and write. And then if you reread them, you will see that most probably for quite, the first big chunk of things that you wrote down are things that prevent you, from succeeding, or are reasons why you shouldn't do it. And if you do this with 2 or 3 things, you will start noticing common threads, and those common threads are definitely your limiting beliefs. And then you start working on why. Why is, to me, in my work, why is probably the most common question, because when you ask why, initially you will start telling me everything that your conscious mind has to say. But if I keep pushing why, you start going deeper, because at one point your conscious mind ends up, uses all the excuses that it can come up with. So if you keep going, your subconscious starts opening up, and your subconscious starts telling you why, really, and it's usually, it goes down, boils down to some kind of shame, some kind of guilt, or and the other thing that you should keep in mind always with limiting beliefs, they always come from childhood. Always is never another option, sadly. And if you look back at your own childhood, your parents, your teachers, grandparents, whoever, all the brothers or sisters or the siblings, when you're young, very young, if you want to do something, most likely someone will jump and say, oh, don't touch that, don't do that, don't climb that chair, later on, don't climb that tree, don't, oh, you're gonna fall, oh, you're gonna this, oh, you're gonna, always the limiting, what you can't do. Sadly, when you get to 15, 16, 17, 18, nobody comes back to you to tell you, oh, Matt, guess what? Now, if you want to climb that tree, you can. Now you're ready for it. Now you physically can. Or, oh, by the way, if you want to do that now, it's possible, because now you understand the consequences. Now, so there is no reframing of all those limiting limitations that were basically, thrown upon you. And also, when you're, as a young child, when you're being told you can't do something, it's never explained to you why you can't do it. They only say, oh, because you're going to fall. But if someone would take the time and have the patience to tell you, even if you're 2, it doesn't matter, because you're still registering. Matt, actually, you're too young for this, because you don't have enough experience to understand yet that if you try to climb that tree, you're gonna fall, because your mobility and your coordination and blah blah blah, all of that is not where it should be. So you run this risk of falling in a calm and reassuring manner. And this is really important, I'll say it again, in a calm and reassuring manner. Then those limiting beliefs wouldn't be there. But because the tone of voice is alert, there's anxiousness, there is abruptness in the way an attempt like that is being approached by the adults in that child's life. The child creates this, bundle of anxiousness, fearness, limitation, and lack of self-belief. And every new experience that feels the same as it felt then only adds up to what you can't do, to what you're not able to do.
Yeah, I love the addition that no one comes back to tell you it's now safe, and so we have this framework for the world that we carry with us into adulthood, and it carries into everything, and we might be consciously aware of it and know why, but most of the time it's unconscious. And I see that as a father now, where I'm pretty I don't know what the word is. Like, I throw my daughter around, we're always playing, I'm holding her upside down. She's very athletic, and I see some people who really baby their children. And I don't think that that's a positive thing when they're learning and exploring and testing themselves and learning to trust themselves. And, how you say it to them is very, very important. And she's very smart. We always explain to her why she can't do something. And the next week she'll come back and say, oh, I can't do that because, and we'll say the reason why. So she fully understands. And on the other side, you have people who really pamper their baby. And I don't think that's going to help them in adulthood, because if anything, we want to push them to help them explore within, safety. If there's harm around, obviously got to make sure they're not going to, hurt themselves. But, we have an open fire, a fireplace. She knows she hasn't touched it and she's at 2 and she never even goes near it because she understands. So I think that's very important. And I'm curious, is recognizing the limiting belief enough, or do you go further in helping them switch that and get rid of it so they can move forward, without running that old pattern? Because I believe you're 100% correct that they all come from childhood. And whenever I've worked with an athlete that is so talented and can win easily in whatever they're doing, they self-sabotage, and it always comes back to probably self-worth or some sort of childhood thing. And I literally just talk to them until I find it. They have no idea what I'm doing. Talk to them and then boom, find it from like their dad or their mom. And there's a reason why they can't be number one. They can't be seen. They can't be on the podium. And then we get through that, and then boom, the next time they win. And it's amazing. It's just like, it just repeats. It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's true. Well, I think the beauty of working with limiting beliefs is that once you uncover them, they're half gone, and then yes, there are various ways of working with them to release them. But I think that the most powerful one is helping the client become aware of the pattern that has been led from that limiting belief. And what I observe is that people usually, once they're aware of that pattern, the next stage is they observe it, they notice it themselves once they've done it. Then the next stage is while they're doing it, and then the next stage is when they're about to do it, and then it stops. And so you sometimes they need a bit more help, but from my experience, usually once it's been uncovered, it can be a pretty fast forward motion to them being so aware that it stops.
Well, I love that process. It reminds me of the process of learning. I think it's like unconscious incompetence first, where you're not even aware you can't do it. Then there's conscious incompetence. Then there's conscious competence. You can do it, but you got to think about it. And then there's unconscious competence, where you can just, like driving, once you know how to drive, you days out for 45 minutes and you forget you're turning and doing all that thing. So it's interesting to see that pattern recognition with your beliefs. And it all starts with awareness. And where I wanted to go, where I want to go next with this is, you work with a lot of leaders. People are executives, top professionals. They're making the money. They're moving and shaking. They got fancy shoes on, and especially in London. So the fanciest shoes, fanciest roads. London's cool. And so what have you seen as far as like characteristics of great leaders? Is kind of a two-part question. Like the characteristics that you've seen a lot of them have, who are really great and excel at their job. And then if somebody wants to embody leadership, they want to be a better leader in their own family, whether it's at their business, whether they're looking to become an entrepreneur, whether they're looking to be a better parent, what would you provide as a framework and knowledge from what you've experienced?
So I start from the premise that we are all leaders, and leadership can definitely be taught, and it can be taught because it exists. We are, whether we like it or not, or whether we are aware or not, we are leaders. We are the leaders of our own life, and every single decision we make, falls into what leadership means at the end of the day. The clients I work with are already very successful people. They are at the top of their game, and what they want, what they're looking for, is to take it to that next level where they lead with ease, where they enjoy being leaders, where they don't feel they don't feel too much pressure, about being responsible for so for the people they employ, or for what the board is expecting, because that pressure is debilitating, can be debilitating. And when they increase their self-confidence, and when they remove all these limiting beliefs, because you can be very, very successful and at the top of your game and still have quite a few limiting beliefs. And one thing that I can say, it's common to most of my male clients, is imposter syndrome, where they think, oh my God, how I'm here, great, but what, I don't know it all. I don't know, what if they'll find out that actually I don't know what, all the time what I'm doing. And sometimes I'm kind of playing it by the ear and all of that, which is not true. They do know what they're doing. And their lives and the decisions they have to make are very, very complex. So the work I do with them is to uncover, what is it that is making them doubt their abilities? What is it? Why do they see also? This is another thing that, again, male clients seem to feel more uncomfortable with, and that is being vulnerable. Telling your team, actually, I don't have an answer for this, but let's sit down, let's find the perfect answer together. Let's see what works, because that your teams are there to bring value. And if you don't allow your team to show the value they can bring, then your team will become disengaged. And once the team is disengaged, and they'll just become some yes mans and yes people, whatever, that's not good for anyone. It's not good for them, because the ones who are really good will leave, will go in places where they feel valued and appreciated, and the ones that stay will just execute whatever they're being told. And when you have a disengaged team, you can't motivate that team. And if that team is disengaged, then you can't be engaged and motivated, because the energy, the dynamic between you and your team is clearly not the one that can help you progress, is not the one that help you be excited about what you have to do. And when I work with my clients and they say, oh, I don't know what, my team is not, I don't know what's going on with my team, I feel they're not happy, or I feel, then I ask, the first thing we look at is, how engaged are you, is he or she with the work they're doing? Because if you're disengaged, there's no way you can have an engaged team. And everything is a mirror, right? At the end of the day. So if you look at your team and you're not happy with what you're seeing, then it's definitely time to look at the self and to look inwards and see where are you unhappy? What's keeping you away from being fully immersed in your life, really, in your present, in your reality. And when you discover that, then you can address the dynamic that with the team and help them re-engage.
I think that's a great point about being engaged. I'm reminded of this graphic that shows up where one of them says it's a boss and it's the guy whipping a whole bunch of people in front of him, and the other one is a leader and he's at the front and all of the people are behind him. So it's setting by example. And the people that I respect and follow and give value to what they share are all leaders in the sense that they are living it. Right? If somebody is teaching me about martial arts, they better be darn good, or were darn good at martial arts, or whatever the case is. They're setting it by example. And in the health and fitness and performance space is very easy to see, because you can see it physically, you can see it in the expression that they're doing. In spirituality and personal development, it can be a little bit trickier because you can use a lot of fancy words. But then you look about how that person's living their life. And I've been fortunate enough to go to a lot of events and a lot of festivals, and I've seen people who really integrate those teachings, and they are who they say they are, and they're very beautiful, powerful leaders. And I've seen a lot of people who have a lot of work to do, and maybe they just like the industry, or they like the topic, or they saw money in it, or whatever the case is. And I'm just like, wow, you haven't even got past the basics here, holy smokes. You're
Yeah.
still like level one. And so it gets a little bit more
But
complex. Go ahead.
yeah, I was going to say, I think the concept of authenticity is a bit maybe not valued at its strength, because authenticity, you can't fake authenticity. And a leader, a good leader is authentic. And if you're trying to be someone you're not, if you're trying to behave in a way that is not natural to you, if you build this facade that you think is what people want to see and is what people will admire or will engage with, but in reality you are very different, that comes across. And especially if you end up spending an hour, they can probably keep it up, and it might fool you. But if you spend more than an hour with them, all of that starts to crumble, and the real true self starts showing up. And that's when the either connection or disconnection happens. If it's true and it's authentic, then the connection is there, and you will be willing to learn from that person as much as that person is willing to learn from you. And if that's not who they are, then that connection will never happen, and it's something that will always bite back, because you'll tell others, and that will propagate much faster actually than if be authentic. Even if you stumble, that's fine. We all do at one point. Or be authentic and vulnerable about the fact that you're still working on something, you're still on your way. The work on self growth and self discovery and self progress and is never done. And the more open you are about that, and the more you say, listen, I know a lot of things, but this is new to me. This I've never heard, or I've heard before, and now I want to learn more about it. You tell me about it. It doesn't matter who it is you're not going to lose respect for that person. To the contrary, you're going to grow more respect for them, because they don't pretend to know it all.
Yeah. And as you're sharing that, my mind went to potential reasons why people do that. And I think the first one is they like the imposter syndrome kind of thing, where they want to know everything, right? They have to be perceived. It's like the ego. They have to know everything, or else they won't be as smart or as good a leader, or their job is not secure, or people will think of me in a certain way. And in the same vein, but a little bit different, is how people will perceive you. If you whether you don't know something. And in my mind, I was articulating this a lot better, so hopefully the audience can understand. You can help me out if you want. But it's like you're people pleasing, right? So rather than being fully authentic, you want people to like you, so you distort and change the answer that is true and authentic to you, so you don't offend someone, or you don't hurt someone, or you don't do this. And that person needs to make peace with the idea that maybe not everyone will like you every time, or your idea every time. So when you're faced with something, if you're doing it with the idea to please the perception of a person or a group of people, you're not being honest, because their reaction isn't up to you as long as you're being honest. You don't need to be an a-hole about it. You don't need to be like, you suck at this, and you say, hey, listen, maybe you're a little bit distracted and the work is suffering here. You say it in the nicest possible way, and you're truthful. And I feel like so many people try to people please, so that is having them go around the world in an inauthentic way. And that's where people will think that you're two-faced as well, because you're saying one thing over here, then you're saying another thing over here, and you're not stationary, you're not in integrity, you're not in congruence. And so people will notice that, and they'll also feel it subconsciously. And so the idea to accept that you might hurt people's feelings, that you might offend people, that not everybody will like you, is something that you got to grow with. I remember one of my Native American elders told me, he's like, you're always going to be the devil to someone, Matt. And I just thought about it for a bit, and I was like, oh, interesting. Right. Because as you hold your position, someone will always have the opposite position somewhere. Right. And you got to accept that.
But I would like to go back to what you just said, and maybe reframe it, in a different way for our conversation and for the audience. And that is the first thing that I would like to say, in addition to what you said, is I think lots of people, or the majority of people, confuse conflict with a difference of opinions. Because we can have a difference of opinions, but be in no conflict. And just because you don't agree with my point of view, it doesn't mean we're in a conflict. It just means you have a different point of view.
Maybe 10 years ago, not anymore. I'm just joking. Now everything's a conflict. You say something in LA, we're out right away. I know what you're saying. Sorry, keep going.
But we got here because majority of people think that a difference of opinion equals conflict, and it doesn't. But what I would like to and that's something I think that we can discuss further, or if not, it's definitely something for the audience to think about. But what I would like to reframe is what you said. You will always upset someone, or you will always offend someone, or, well, the way I see it, and the way I'd like to turn it, onto its head, is you actually don't. Because when you express something, unless you purposely want to insult someone, and you say insulting words just because you want to insult them, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about people feeling insulted by what you said, and that's very different from always insulting someone. Just because someone takes offense and feels insulted, by what you said, that's on them. That's their filters. That's how they hear what you're saying. And my advice would be, when you feel insulted by or offended by someone, just stop before you react and ask yourself, what's going on? Why do I feel this? Because probably in 9 out of 10 cases, it's your problem, is your beliefs behind that, is what your insecurities, that your low self-worth, that is telling you, oh, did you hear what Matt just said? Oh, he can see, and he's totally, telling you you're good for nothing, or you're whatever, but that's your mind chatter. That's what your mind, your subconscious filtered. Well, no, sorry, what your conscious filtered and fed your subconscious all, you know, all the information that it needed to be offended. So once people can reframe that and understand that you're not doing anything to anyone. Again, we're taking away, we're not talking about when you purposely want to be mean to someone. And even then, it's probably a reaction of your issues to what they said. But, you know, we're not going to get into all that you said, he said, she said kind of thing. Also, because we need to take control of that. So if I feel insulted by something, I feel offended, I feel dismissed, or I feel unvalued, that's the work I have to do. Because for as long as I will put it on you and I will keep saying, oh, Matt always upsets me, or he always, you know, offends me, then I will never do the work, because I live in victimhood, as I like to put it, you know, and I tell my clients that my work is to get them to move out of victimhood, you know, is to get them to move away from life happening to them and to making life happen. And as long as you're a victim, you will never make life happen. The power of what happens to your life is always in the hands of everyone else. And it can be anyone, you know, that you interact with, whether you know them or not. So I would like, you know, to you to also take that on, and in your further conversations, you know, flip that.
Yeah,
And
well,
say,
I absolutely agree with you. And the people who are taking offense, they're probably not going to hear this, sadly. And I agree with what you're saying, you know, totally. And it's even more challenging if you say something that's true, right? Like if you see someone and like you can do it in a mean way. You can be like, you know, haven't seen them for a bit, and you're like, whoa, you put on some pounds. And I'll say that to my man friends, but if you say that to a female friend, you might get slapped in the head. Now it's gonna hurt. But it's also a little piece of truth for them to recognize. It can be helpful, and it's said in a nice way. And also many other examples in your life, right? Maybe sometimes as a parent, you know, my wife Heidi will say something to me and how I reacted, and immediately I feel mad, right? And then I stop, you know, because I'm just processing, because I want to be the best parent I can. And then I think about it. And then if I, after processing and thinking about it, say, no, this is what I believe, you know, had to put the foot down. And then next time I can do it in a better way, and you're correct about that, then okay, sweet. But I have to go through that initial upsetness, because I want to be a good dad, and I don't want to be harmful to my child. And I, you know, so it's personal. And it's challenging, but it's also good because it helps you grow, and you're going to get more sensitive for what you identify with and what's important to you. And if it's more truthful, if it's, you know, if somebody says, hey, Matt, you're, you know, I don't know, like a fat European, is like, oh, well, you know, I'm not overweight. Although I'm getting there, and you know, I'm not from Europe, so it makes no sense. You know, it's like, how does that even relate? But if you say something like, I don't know, hey, you've made so many podcasts and they're all shit, like, oh, ouch, that's not nice. You know, it's more personal, but they could say it in a nicer feedback way that I could improve the show or something. Then it still might, you know, what do you want to say? That I'm done my rant.
I was going to say that even if someone says and says it, you know, people express themselves however they can, right? And how they express themselves usually shows the level of their self discovery and you know, the work on the self they do. So the lower they are on that scale or on that path, let's say, the more meaner words they will use. But so the meaner the words, the less impact they should have on you, because that's the best they can do, and they're not where you are. You've done work, you're doing work, you're committed to your growth, to your progress. So you just have to be compassionate towards them. And if they say, hey Matt, I listened to your podcast and actually they're shit, you just have to say, well, I'm really sorry you don't like them. It's the best I can do, and that's it. Leave it there. There's no point, because them not liking the podcast is not about the podcast not being good or you not being a good host. It's about what they hear. Is about their anger that they're not doing whatever they're doing. It might be that they're hearing things on that podcast that is triggering them, but because they're not ready to work with those triggers, they'll just lash out. They'll just express their anger. So to me, the meaner the words, actually, the less the impact. But if I'm being told something in a very kind way with all the right words, that hits home a lot stronger, because that means I'm talking to someone who is who can recognize things that I need to work on, because they're doing that work as well. So that doesn't come from anger anymore. That doesn't come from someone who doesn't know how to deal with what's going on. It comes from someone who knows. And if they see that, and if they recognize that in me, it means that, ouch, that hurts. I definitely need to pay attention to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with everything you're sharing. And I'm reminded of the quote or the idea that, no one who has ever done more than you will criticize you. And I see that, if you want to go to the toilet bowl of the world, just go to Twitter comments. And I don't know if half of them are bots or real people or what is going on there, but in Facebook was the same thing. I'm just like, holy smokes, this is just horrible. And, this is the expression of where people are at that time. And then the other little piece I'd like to add is, it's not for everyone. I got that. I still get it from my dad every now and then. He's like, oh, your podcasts, like at the beginning, he's like, they're too long. I was like, well, they're not for you. Like, I'm not, if, you might be interested in business. You might be interested in trees and woodworking and real estate. Listen to those. This is for, a specific person, and that's okay. And that's my own work. It's like, that's okay. That's totally fine that it's not for you. I have to be aligned in my own integrity and do the best that I can. And again, I feel like for people who get afraid of doing things, that's a lot of the people that I work with. They want to do something positive and meaningful, right? They want to have a fulfilling life. They want to have their needs met. They want to be successful, but they want to steer their life in a way that aligns with them. And there's a lot of fear around that, right? What people will think, how successful they'll be, all these different things. And I think it's so simple to me. It's like, just get aligned on who you are, create something. And that's how you also grow your spiritual muscle and your faith, because you see how the universe and God supports you. And it doesn't matter how successful you get, as long as you're aligned. And it's also understanding that not everyone's going to get it. It is a very personal journey. Most people who do these things, they don't have a cheering crowd in the background who understands what they're going for, who, is going to support them. It's a very challenging and solo journey. So there's a lot of growth involved. And that's just important to, come back to who you are, why you're doing it. What's your mission? What's your values? What's your intent? Doing your best. And as you alluded to earlier, can you do it in peace? And can you do it from a sense of completion? And I think about this example and share it sometimes that, my daughter's only 2, so it's like, oh, you are 3. You're not good enough because you can't ride a bike yet. Or when she gets to 10, oh, you're not good enough because you can't drive a car yet. Or, you can't write a full, proper storybook or whatever. I don't know. And then at 18 is like, oh, you're not good enough because you haven't gone to university or you haven't started a business. And then at 25, you're like, oh, well, you're not good enough because of whatever the case is. And then you recognize that there's this point between like your 20s and 30s and 40s where you're supposed to have everything figured out. You're supposed to know everything. You're supposed to be complete and whole and harmonious. And you recognize that the entire life experience is a process. Everything is a process. So if you're not complete and whole and happy and harmonious and peaceful at 3, at 9, at 15, at 21, at 30, wherever you are, your business is crushing it. Your business just failed, right? You're starting your new project. You're in the middle of it. It's if you can find peace and contentment, that is a very powerful way to operate because you're not waiting for anything external to validate the beauty of the life experience.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Absolutely. But but that's probably the most challenging expectation of the self, in my opinion, because we are so busy and we are surrounded by so much noise, and especially since social media came about, where everything has to be perfect, and you are so you end up being so consumed by that external validation that you completely forget what you stand for and why what you do things for, and who you are, and be comfortable with who you are, be comfortable with your journey that might be very different and might not be what others expect. So yeah, I think it's definitely what we're the ideal case scenario, and I think we as parents bear a huge responsibility in helping our kids grow up that way, and be comfortable to be different as well, because they will be different if that's the kind of parenting they will receive, but they'll be different in a very good way, and they will stand out from the crowd, for sure, but they'll do it in a way that they're comfortable with it, and they won't need anyone else to validate who they are, and why, explain why they are like that.
Absolutely. And I agree. It is the challenging ultimate way to process and live. And I feel like it's what they teach in Zen and enlightenment, or all those different types of subjects. They say, be in the moment. Okay, great. I remember reading that as a kid. I was like, how the heck do I do that? I'm in the moment for like 4 steps and then I'm out again. And then it's just the practice and process and reminder that it's available. As you wander, and as you talked about the patterns, one way that I did it was I kept track of the emotions that I didn't prefer. So frustration, I get frustrated pretty easily. So that's a trigger for me to remind myself that, also peace is available. And so the more, negative impulses that you have, you can set those as triggers to come back and then say, hey, you know what, this can be peaceful and perfect as it is, to accept the moment and immerse yourself fully, because it's going to be the same thing whether you resist it or that you engage with it wholeheartedly. And so that was one of the tools that was helpful for me. This whole go ahead.
I read a really interesting book very recently. It's called The Surrender Experiment.
I read that recently too.
Have you? Yeah. I loved it. And I thought, I thought it brought a very interesting, again challenging perspective, and I am trying to apply it. I can't say I'm successful all the time, but I'm at the start of that process, and so yeah, this is it's a bit like that, it's learning to not be guided. No, hold on, to learning to feel, to allow to feel out of control sometimes. We can't always be in control, and as life would prove it, probably the best things happen to us when we're not, and when we don't fight it.
Yeah, I love at the beginning of the book, it's the idea and the concept that life and God, it has your back. And if these things are not as you would intend, as what you can control in your little world, he observed nature and the environment and thought, well, if everything gets taken care of in all the world, why would God not take care of me? And so whatever's happening, I will surrender to, whether in my mind I like it or not. And there's definitely, throughout the book, he explores the distinction, which I believe is important for what happens to us and what we intend, right? We don't just say, oh, this happens, I'm going to go down this. It's this match, and you have to learn how to play with that, right? With what God is giving you and what you're experiencing in your life, with what you intend, but also surrendering to every single thing that happens in that moment, because that's actually what's happening. And then how do you respond to that? How are you going to engage with that? So as he received these different opportunities, he engaged with those opportunities as if God was presenting them to him personally, which I feel like was a very powerful book, a very powerful story. He got to wild success. And also, as you said, incredibly challenging to do, because we have our idea of where we want to go and what we want to do. And I just really love the thought that he, in the whole premise of how he approaches it, is that God has the best for me. So if it's in my world, it's there for a reason, and I can surrender to that. I can engage with that, and I'll be supported. And the whole book is very powerful.
It is. And if the way I kind of looked at that story is, and the parallel I made is, if you have a mentor that you really trust and you really believe in, and that mentor has your back, and is the whole intention is to help you progress. If that person comes to you with opportunities, you will most probably go for those opportunities without thinking twice, because you trust that person, and that whatever encouragement, whatever advice that you would receive is for your benefit. But when it comes to life, and when it comes to God or universe, or whatever you wanna call it, we tend to not give it the same trust, and we start fighting it. So the way I looked at it is, what if I accepted fully, that life and God are my mentors, and they want the best for me. So yes, I might feel uncomfortable at times, and I might have to push myself, and very quickly, let go of some limiting beliefs that hold me back. But yeah, let go with it. Let's see where that takes me, without doubting the intention that this amazing mentor has for me.
Well, I love that. I think that is an incredibly succinct and powerful way to frame that book. I love that. So this has been great. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for your work. Is there
Thank you.
anything that we didn't discuss that you want to speak about before we close the show?
Um, I think I really, really enjoyed this conversation, and a lot of food for thought for me as well. And I hope, your listeners enjoy our conversation, and we can open their minds, to some whys in their personal lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And where do they go find you and your work if they want to stay in touch, if they want to read some of your books, if they want to dive a little bit deeper, where should they go?
It's my website, which is mihaelaberciu.com, or on LinkedIn, Instagram. I say my name everywhere.
Awesome. Well, I'll put the links in the show. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And
Thank you.
yeah, thanks everybody for listening. Peace.
Thank you, Matt.
My pleasure. See you guys.